So welcome to today's Croud Academy live webinar. Today, the hot topic is all about smart shopping and making the most of automation. So we've got a pretty packed agenda in the sense that we're going to be going through, I guess, quite a bit, but we'll start off with an introduction of myself. So my name is Chandni Kothari. I am a Biddable Associate Director here in the Croud New York office. I've been at Croud for about 2 years now. My specialty is paid search, or even paid shopping, Google Shopping even, with a bit of social there as well. We here at Croud at least manage quite a few e-commerce clients. So that's exactly where our expertise in not only paid search, but also Google Shopping as well comes in. So we're going to be going through kind of what we've learned as a best practice in terms of shopping. And now that we know that so much of it has become automated, where do you take that control back and how do you make the most of it? Cool. So on today's agenda, we're going to go through kind of a timeline of Google Shopping and how it's evolved back from 2002 up until now. How has it changed? And in this part, we're mainly just going to speak about how has it changed from a practitioner's point of view. So how do you manage those Google Shoppings before and now? Then we're going to talk about the impact on brands and advertisers. And then we'll also go on to, give you some real key top tips as to what you can do from all the aspects that you can actually control with regards to Google Shopping. So let's start off with the timeline. So this Google Shopping essentially started off in 2002, where it was called Froogle, interestingly. So this was actually just a database of all the product, which I guess Google could crawl at the time based on, and it would give you results based on the search term. So really similar to what it is right now, but back then, interestingly enough, it was actually free. Moving on to then in 2007, it was rebranded to Google Product Search. So again, it was pretty much the same thing, nothing too different, but again, it was rebranded to that new name. Moving on to, I guess, 5 years after that, it turned into a paid model, where that's exactly when Google Shopping started. And that's when it was incorporated into AdWords. And that's kind of how we understand it, or how we use it. It's kind of more close to the time when I started doing paid search. So I'm a bit more familiar with that one. Moving on to 2013, where Google Express came out. So this is when it was kind of expanding onto making sure that it was a real seamless and frictionless experience, right? Where, you could just buy really quickly just through Google's site itself. And again, it was a really easy checkout, and in terms of free delivery, etc., it depended on the store. But again, the idea then was it to be completely frictionless. Moving on to 2018, and I think this is when, we started getting voice assistants, etc. And this is when it kind of encompassed itself into Google Shopping Action. So I just remember around this time it being a really hot topic as to how you could feature your products through Google Shopping on a Google Home or an Alexa. Maybe not so an Alexa, that's kind of its own hub between Alexa and Amazon. And then now moving on to the Google Smart Shopping side of things. So it did actually begin in 2018, but when, I think it was actually in 2019, where it kind of rephrased, again, kind of a similar rebrand, but again, it became a lot more powerful. And then now moving on to 2020, when now it's, I guess, been rebranded as Google Shop as such. So this is when, we've seen the return of Froogle, interestingly. So I like to think that it's kind of gone all the way back full circle back to when it was 2002, and it's a fairly recent change on the SERP. It is obviously only going to be affecting the US for now, and it will naturally expand onto maybe some other markets. But Google have basically claimed that the main SERP isn't necessarily changing. So when you do a search, the paid ads are going to remain at the top. It's only until you actually move onto the shopping tab itself is when, the organic listings are going to be there. for you to opt into this, it's really simple in the sense that you just need a Google Merchant Center, and you just have to hit that tick box to make sure that you can appear on both paid if you're running paid shopping campaigns, or if you want to be eligible to appear on the organic listings. In terms of the impact of what it's going to have on paid search, it's a little bit kind of up in the air in terms of, is it going to affect our CPCs? Are we going to see a decrease in impressions, et cetera, et cetera? I mean, I kind of taking it back to some of my own experiences. I was just doing this, maybe not necessarily for puzzles, but I'm trying to find products to grow a home garden, and not necessarily to kind of criticize the results that I was getting from organic, and maybe I'm just leaning more towards paid, but then when I was scrolling through the paid results, they were a lot more relevant to what I was searching versus some of the other ones I wasn't necessarily leaning towards, which were on the organic side, because they had things like, shipping was you had to pay for and things like that, whereas I'm kind of a prime gal in the sense that I want free shipping. But in that sense, I could kind of decipher a little bit of my own experience between organic and paid so far. Speculation suggests that organic shopping is going to account for about 3 to 15% of traffic. So that's quite a big percentage, or even small. So I think we'll have to decipher exactly how that's going to impact us the more that we see it appear on our search results. Now, relating it back to COVID and exactly what's happening right now in terms of shopping, I just thought this would be an interesting piece to put in here, because as we are, we're kind of in a space where we're really relying on these online retailers to deliver goods to us, as we can't necessarily go out and shop as we'd like to. Making sure that we can actually experience or, browse through all these different retailers is actually quite important, which is where, kind of Google are coming from. Maybe the aspect of it is the small business side. We want to open it up to everyone and make sure it's free. But for me, as a consumer, I think it's quite important to make sure that I can browse exactly what I want to, or, the fact that I just need to rely on these retailers to deliver for me. So yeah, I just thought that was kind of an interesting point as to how do we think COVID is going to impact this. And then moving forward, after this is, I guess, kind of over, are we going to rely more on online retailers? Are we going to shop more? Are we going to, maybe be a little bit more afraid to shop within stores and things like that, because of, things like social distancing and just wanting to keep our distance? Goods being sent from warehouses are likely to have less hands touched it, etc. Anyway, I just thought it was an interesting part to bring in. Now let's talk about how Google Shopping has changed for us as marketing practitioners. So out with the old. So the standard shopping campaigns kind of had really 4 simple things, which I'd kind of like to bucket them into. You had full control, so you could, make sure that you didn't appear on mobile, or you didn't appear on, let's say, a certain geo, anything like that. The optimization of it was completely manual. Like, you could use some bid strategies on it, but I think everyone just preferred the manual optimization of it, because you could really get quite granular with what went up and down in terms of adjustments. There was only one ad format, in the sense that you were only on the SERP. You would only necessarily appear in that box of Google Shopping. And then the other one, which I really appreciated, was that granular visibility, is the fact that, you could see things like search terms, you could see, how, what audience was doing really well for you on this particular campaign, etc. So again, like, the visibility that you had from running these campaigns was really granular. And again, it's something, as we know, for smart shopping, it's kind of, disappeared in that sense. So just to readdress that definition of what smart shopping is and what it's evolved to, we can take it from here. So smart shopping campaigns use Google's machine learning technology to automatically drive sales and reach shoppers across Google sites and networks. So the kind of 2 key takeaways there is the fact that it's completely led by machine learning, and it helps you to automatically drive those sales, and then also to reach shoppers all across the network. So it kind of encompasses a couple of those Google products. So how does it necessarily work? So just want to you cover these from a super high level. Smart shopping, essentially, as we used to know it as just being on the SERP, it combines that display element into it. So, you know, in terms of the remarketing, display campaigns that you used to use, you know, it's all encompassed into this one campaign, making it really easier to use. You know, this is actually quite a critical point, which I know that I definitely bring up, is the fact that that display remarketing side of smart shopping campaigns is quite heavy. We don't necessarily know what that percentage split looks like, which is, you know, a bit frustrating for us. But in terms of managing it, it kind of combines all of that into one. It uses machine learning to, I guess, bid or appear, etc. So it's completely automated in that sense. So it's picking up so many more signals than we could ever see from that granular visibility as such, right? It's picking up all the things it can pick up from the networks it has across, you know, maps or anything like that. So it does have that visibility into things which we just wouldn't have. And then the automated bidding side of things. So again, it just uses, I guess, kind of two different bid strategies. The first one being maximum conversion value. So that's one which, again, is you can't necessarily choose, you're automatically opted into it. And then you can obviously tailor it based on the target ROAS that you're optimizing towards. So here I thought it'd be a good idea to kind of compare the two. So with smart shopping, with standard shopping, at least, you know, we had that, it was super manual, you had that visibility. Whereas with smart shopping, it's completely automated. You're able to reach across multiple ad types. So it's not just the standard SERP, but across the display side of things. The real key part, which I think is great about smart shopping, is the fact that you've got maximum reach, right? You're expanding it across all of the network owned by Google. Unfortunately, from the control side of things, there isn't much you can do. So you can't control placements. You can maybe, if you have a Google account manager, you know, if you are with a premium partner agency, you do have some control. But if you're a smaller business, you don't necessarily have that. As you know, depending on your level of investment, you know, the support that you get from Google, there's no control on targeting or bid. So again, it's all automated. You can't see how high you're bidding for a particular product or anything like that. And you just don't have that visibility at all. And that's the one that I kind of really want to take away, is that because so much of it is automated and because it's all led by machine learning, you don't have that visibility. And so today I really want to go through some top tips as to, even though you don't necessarily have that visibility, where can you begin to take control and take, you know, make the most of automation. Now, before we go into those top tips, we're going to talk about the impact on brands and advertisers and how, you know, even though it is a great product and we don't have that visibility, what are the amazing parts of it? So again, we touched upon the thing that it's expanded across that network, right? So it's not on the SERP, not only on the SERP, beg your pardon, but it's on display, it's on YouTube, it's on Gmail. So again, you're really tapping into everywhere where that user might be, if they're browsing something on YouTube, or if, you know, they're just checking their emails in Gmail. Again, like, you're able to make sure that you're keeping that person or that user or consumer engaged as possible, to be like, hey, convert from me. And these are why, you know, retailers, brands, advertisers are using it, is because we've got these amazing results. So this is for one of our clients. Unfortunately, we can't necessarily tell you who that client is, but we can kind of bucket them into a couple of categories. So this is a luxury swimwear brand where we've seen some amazing results. So a nearly 100% increase in return on ad spend, which is fantastic. You know, as it is tapping into that display side of things, we've seen a significant decrease in CPCs, which is, again, you know, amazing. And the other one here, again, I mean, these results are astonishing. A real massive increase in return on ad spend and a real decrease in CPC. So that's kind of the trend that we tended to see, you know, early on when we started to run these campaigns. And the one thing I just want to emphasize here is, you know, even though it's encompassing in lots of different parts of different campaigns you used to run, like display and, for example, more display and shopping, it is really driving results. So that's where the automation is, you know, you can't you can't necessarily deliver those results manually, right? You know, when you compare from before and after, from standard to smart, the results are amazing. And it really is leaning into all the automation, machine learning to deliver these. Now, even though it's completely led by machine learning, the one thing which I would love for you guys to take away from is that even though, when you look at it, let's say you're grouping all of your activity between particularly display, as it does kind of lean into that, display and, for example, paid search, is it helping to grow your bottom line, right? It could be that it might be like kind of cannibalizing between the two different campaigns, paid shopping, or Google Shopping even in display. Is it really helping you to grow your bottom line? Because even though it's delivering these results in isolation, overall, is it helping you to really increase your reach or increase your revenue? As you know, these are performance-led campaigns. And Google Smart Shopping is only ever increasing. So the standard shopping campaigns, if you are running them, they are no longer going to be supported by any new product releases whatsoever. So it's kind of a case for you to be like, hey, you know, we really need to jump on this bandwagon about smart shopping, because you do have that, you know, it's the only thing that's going to get the investment from Google now on. And I do know that they are listening to our feedback, in the sense that we know that it's kind of really expanding on the display remarketing side of things. So they are coming, you know, out with different products as to use smart shopping. If visibility is one of them, I don't think so. I would love to be able to see the performance on a network by network basis, so we can make, you know, different changes to what we're going to talk about later. But you know, it's kind of what does the future have in for us. Right, so let's get into the top tips. So where do you take control of such an automated product? The feed. Now, the feed is the most powerful thing. So it's kind of maybe not necessarily going back full circle, but sometimes we forget about this, you know, this power that we have in our hands as such. So, you know, the feed is that one thing that powers Google Shopping, right? It powers your campaigns, and really making sure that this is completely optimized is the best thing that you can do for something which is so automated. So Google is actually crawling this so much more. So if you are managing campaigns, or have been for the past year or so, you know, you must have been affected by making sure that, you know, your taxes are in there by state, because in the US, here at least, they do charge tax differently. And there are lots of different nuggets of the Google Merchant Center that they are getting a lot hotter on, making sure that everything is spick and span, because as it does kind of expand across that network, it's even more important to make sure that you are being as transparent as possible to that user, depending on what location they might be in, as to what is the actual charge of this product. I just want to take a moment here to make sure that if you do have any questions, please do feel free to pop them in there. I can see a couple now, but yeah, please feel free to ask. Right, so let's go through these tips. So the first one is keyword volume. I don't think this is that surprising, but the one thing I want to take away is making sure that you're really assessing what keywords actually have high volume. So for example, for this one, we're looking at cameras. So here we've got, as an example, Olympus Tough cameras, but it's not necessarily just looking at what branded searches you might be getting, but also what non-branded searches you might be seeing. So for example, you know, as lens, there's lots of examples here where you can put in things like movement lens or barrow lens. I have no idea what that is, but there's lots of different versions of, you know, what you can put in. So the more that you are, you know, feeding into your feed or your title or your description, the more likely you're going to appear for these searches. Now, it's obviously really important to make sure that it's relevant. You know, I don't necessarily want to put in a barrow lens if it's not a barrow lens, or a fisheye lens if it can't even do that. So the relevancy is obviously key there, but making sure that you're adding in as different variations to your titles and descriptions as possible to make sure that you appear for these. Learning from the past. So when you were running those standard campaigns, the standard shopping campaigns at least, what were you seeing? You know, were there common keywords which had high traffic? So again, you're kind of reviewing that search term report and you're seeing, okay, well, you know, I can see that digital lenses was kind of the one thing that we kept on appearing for. And we picked up a lot of volume for, and then you can assess, okay, did it get a high click-through rate? Was it actually converting, as an example? And the one thing about those non-converting keywords for is that these might be things that you might want to avoid in your titles and descriptions. But also, if you do work with an agency that is a premium partner and you do have that Google support, agency support, you can actually apply negatives to your campaigns. So this is, again, a feature that you do get if you're working with an agency like Croud. You can actually apply those, but if you are a smaller business or just kind of running them yourself without an agency, unfortunately, you don't necessarily have that luxury. But if you ever do get that large and you do need to work with an agency, we do have that great relationship with Google to make sure that we can make use of features like that. Testing different variants. So again, you've learned what has keyword volume, and you've learned what from the past as such. So you can, again, opt these in. So the example that we have here is the Olympus digital lens as an example. And again, we know that digital lens is something which has a high volume. So what we've done is we've moved it to earlier on in the title, because we know that Google only picks up the first approximate 120 characters or so. So you just want to make sure that it's picking up the most relevant terms are being tested earlier on. And maybe you can add in low priority ones, so such as camera lens. We know that actually picks it up, but here we've got digital lens in the first one versus the second. So again, you're just trying to add in as much variance as possible. I actually know that mirrorless lens is another one. So again, do we want to add that in earlier in case that picks up more volume? And it really is about testing all the different variants that you can to make sure that you've got as many learnings as possible. Focus on those high revenue driving products. So if you have the luxury of seeing if these products actually have a high profit or not, you can bucket these into different things. And this is, again, it's just an example. It may be the case that 60% of your products drive high profit for you, and this is purely just an example. So let's go through each one of these. So we've got 10% of products which actually drive a high amount of revenue for us. So it not only drives a high amount of revenue, but it also might drive a high amount of click traffic for you as well. So this is the best scenario in the sense that you want to test as many variants here, because the fact that you're getting conversions off the back of it, because it's automated, and the idea is automated bidding, so try and drive results. The second part is that you actually have so much click traffic, so it's making your test even more statistically significant. So it is important to test these on the products which are getting a lot of traffic. And then here are some more suggestions for you to apply that to the mid and low. So for example, in the middle, you might want to test a variant at a time, as you've tested lots of different ones in your high. And then for those low products where you've got so many, you may not have the time to optimize every single title, every just different description. You can understand the learnings that you've got from your first two tests and then templatize it. So you can just make sure that it includes things like brand XYZ as you've learned. So this is an example that we've tested all these, we've looked at all those different things. So we looked at the keyword volume, we learned from the past, and we looked at those search terms reports, and then we looked at the ones which are actually driving a high amount of traffic. So again, we can't necessarily tell you exactly what client this is, but we did see some amazing results from doing this. So before, they had something like light gray sofa, and you might not think that someone actually searches for 84.5 inch sofa, but they do. There is actually a significant amount of volume around the inch, the length of the sofa that you're looking for, 110 inch, that's actually a really common one. Or I think 75 inch also is another common one. So again, you're taking those common or those high traffic keywords, in fact, and just applying those nuggets to your titles to make sure that you can appear for as many searches as possible. And as a result of doing this, there was a significant increase. I do know that Google actually has they have kind of the preferred or best practice for different categories. Is definitely test those categories in the way that they've kind of given you the best practice to test brand, you know, gender, the product name, and the color, etc. But I would really encourage you to test them, because different things could work better for you. You know, the fact that it might be a gray sofa might pick up more traffic or deliver better performance for you versus adding in things like high arms or love seat. So yeah, the key takeaway here is to make sure that you're testing significantly and often enough, making sure it's statistically significant to make sure that you can gain some great learnings. Cool, so now we're going to go through what you can control. So we've talked about the feed, we've talked about all the different things that you can optimize, and now we're going to understand what can you control from when you're managing that campaign in AdWords. So there are kind of other things, but these are kind of the key ones. So the products which are in that campaign, right? The budget of that campaign. And then if you are optimizing towards a target ROAS, you can, you know, make changes to that as well. So the changes that you're making to target ROAS, what is this influencing? It's influencing impressions and clicks, your average CPC, and the auction that you're in. So obviously, if you're increasing or lowering the budget, or if you're taking products in and out of it, you are naturally going to expect your impressions and clicks to, you know, do a little wave depending on which direction you're going in. But the one things which I found really interesting after we've been running Smart Shopping is how often does your CPC fluctuate? Again, you can't necessarily see where the fluctuations are coming from. Are they coming from the fact that you're actually seeing more display ads in your Smart Shopping campaigns, or just more standard, you know, the standard ad or anything like that? So, you know, what's happening to your CPC? And the other thing which I thought was really interesting is the fact that, you know, what's happening in the auction. So the products that you have, are you appearing to competitors who you weren't expecting? Is their impression share higher than yours? And it might just be worth, again, looking at the Google Merchant Center to see what products you're appearing against and kind of taking some ideas from that. And again, like, the more that you're able to understand this, there are obviously a lot of factors outside of that which might influence your performance or the way that CPC or your bid might be, you know, depending on conversion rate and things like that. But I just think it's quite interesting to make sure that you're keeping an eye on all these different things as you do make changes to your campaign. The impact on your search campaign. So this is quite interesting, and it's happened across quite a few of our clients, is the fact that when you do launch these Smart Shopping campaigns, what happens to your other ones? What happens to your search campaigns? So one of the things that we've seen is sometimes, you know, the fact that maybe your branding and non-brand campaigns are actually seeing a fluctuation. So we've launched some campaigns and suddenly, you know, we see that overall clicks are increasing, but what's happened to the other ones? And what you might tend to see is the fact that your Smart Shopping campaigns are going to capitalize on that brand traffic, or, you know, your brand and your product traffic. So for example, in the case of Olympus cameras, it could be Olympus pen or any of the other variations. So it's really important to, like, keep an eye on this, because even though your Smart Shopping campaigns in isolation are doing amazingly, you're seeing, oh my God, what's happening to my search ones? Have I assessed this correctly? So again, it's just making sure you understand what's happening on the SERP, the fact that, you know, you may be appearing for these keywords with Smart Shopping ads versus your search one. So again, make sure that you collectively assess what's happening on your account as a whole versus making, you know, too brash decisions between the two. You know, if you are seeing your search campaigns suffer, then you might want to make sure you increase your bids or anything like that. So again, assess it from as a whole and holistically. Review attribution. So this is a little bit, it might be a little bit different depending on how you're reporting. But again, what we've been doing is assessing the attribution that you're using and that clients are using within their account. So as you know, data-driven is something that Google have been pushing. It does it tend to drive, you know, better results? Who knows? But from a Smart Shopping perspective, we do know that as it's, you know, learning from its kind of marking its own homework, etc., it will perform better with a data-driven attribution model. So is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, it's a good thing in the sense that you are you may be getting more revenue as a whole. And the other good thing is the fact that you're giving your Smart Shopping campaigns more learnings. You're giving it more for it to learn from and understand from its, I guess, positive or negative performance. So it may be worth for you to maybe optimize towards a different attribution model, but then maybe make sure that you're looking at it in GA for overall performance, etc. So, you know, make sure you assess, like, is this really helping my bottom line grow? And, you know, test it, you know, see if it works for you. So yeah, to kind of conclude that bit, you want to keep your eyes on the changes that you've made to your target ROAS and spend, the impact that you've had on your search campaigns, and then if you do have the luxury, review the attribution models that you're counting your conversions for. Awesome. So this takes us kind of towards the end. So just want to recap on the key takeaways that you can do to take control and make the most of your automation. So for the feed side of things, 4 key things to remember. Keyword volume. So again, see what is getting a significant amount of searches, learn from the past. So when you were running those the standard shopping campaigns, what were you seeing conversions for or traffic for? Test lots of different variants and make sure that you focus on those high priority products, and then eventually trickle that down to the rest of your feed. And then when you're managing those smart shopping campaigns, make sure you're assessing what is happening to your other campaigns. You know, are your CPCs going up? Are you appearing in different auctions, etc.? The impacts on the search campaigns, I think that one's a real important one. So, you know, make sure you're reviewing it holistically. And then if you can, review the attribution model that you're using to optimize towards. All right. Oopsie, no, that's not what I was supposed to do. I can still carry on presenting, bear with me. All right, so we'll move on to the questions. So let us, okay, cool. So one of the questions that we've had here is, do you think Google Shopping will ever really be able to compete with Amazon given the recent announcement of on free listings? My honest opinion is no, because I think Amazon is a product or a service that is ingrained across the world. It's ingrained in our kind of day-to-day life significantly, right? So whenever I want something, the first thing is that I am going to do is Amazon. And I think the reason why is because it's got that delivery aspect to it, right? It helps you to find those products, but the fact that it can deliver to you really quickly is what is the best part of it, right? The fact that Prime delivery, you can get it the next day or, you know, within that week, etc. So in terms of competing in that sense, I don't think so. However, you know, Google is pretty powerful, right? So it can, I think it makes me think about the Google Express product. So that's kind of when it would tap into other retailers and make sure that it could, you know, that you can pick it up from Target or you could pick it up from Walmart. So it's got a network that it could actually work in a different way, basically. I think, you know, it might be a case where, like, you know, with Amazon Locker, you can pick it up from a different section, from a common place or your workplace or anything like that, or a big building. You know, it might be able to tap into something like that. So I think it's going to be quite interesting. I also think that it's kind of it's good that things are going to come into play with each other. I remember we actually have a company-wide chat and someone shared something about Shopify doing something really similar. And again, like, how are all these companies going to be competing with each other to make sure that they're the first place that someone searches for? I know for me, out of habit, I always go to Amazon shopping, Amazon to get something. And the cool thing, and again, this isn't me more so understanding because I'm learning more about Amazon, but the fact that with Amazon, you can get more of your answers quicker. You know, it's got questions that other people have asked, or it's got, you know, they encourage you to do live unboxing, etc. And it's all on one page. So the information that you get about that particular product and the fact that it compares different products with each other, like, from a user experience perspective, I think it's really, really robust. So yeah, cool. All right. Any more questions? All right, I think that's it. So thank you so much for joining this afternoon. I know it's been both great in the UK and in the US. So, and I'm not sure about the rest of the world, but thank you so much for joining. And I hope you enjoyed it and you had something to take away from today's presentation. So thank you so much.